Okay, we're going to do Daf Ayin Hayim and Beis, and then Ayin Vav. Bezos Hashem. Ayin Vav. Okay, we're going to go over the last Tashma on Ayin Hayim and Beis. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. So we're learning. We should have Beis Mikvah. Okay. We had this machlekes in the Mishnah about if a husband can annul a wife's vows before they're taken. He says when you take the vows, they should be annulled. So Rabbi Eliezer says yes, the Chacham said no. Gemara has a question, according to Rabbi Eliezer, that says that yes, that he can annul the vows before they're taken. Rabbi Eliezer is Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkin. According to that, do the vows ever take effect and they're annulled, or do they never take effect? Right? Does it start and it gets knocked off, or does it not even start? When I first thought this was like a theoretical question, and the Gemara asked, what's the practical difference? He said the difference would be if someone says, I want to be like her. Ani kamaya. Wife took a vow that she would be a Nazira, let's say. He says, Vani kamaya. So if we say that the vow takes effect, so then that would mean that this other person becomes a Nazira. Then the wife's Naziris goes off because the husband annulled it prior, but it started at least for a moment, and so the other person becomes a Nazira. But if we say that it never takes effect, then the other person doesn't become a Nazir. Okay. So we're still trying to figure out, do they take effect, do they not take effect? That's what we're doing. Does it take effect to be annulled, and then it's annulled, or does it not even start? That's the question. So Tashma, come and listen. Amar Leila Rabbi Eliezer. He told to Rabbi Eliezer, this is the sages that are arguing with Rabbi Eliezer, that say that it doesn't work. Rabbi Eliezer logic was like this. He said that if you can annul a vow after it takes effect, the husband can annul his wife's vows. So for sure, he can annul vows before they take effect. It didn't even take effect yet. It's much weaker. Once it starts, and then you already have the problem. But he can still take that off. So if he can take it off after it starts, then for sure he can take it off before it starts. Preempt. He can get it off. So the sages said back that they don't like his logic. Why? Comes to a mikvah. Something's tamei. So after it's already tamei, then the mikvah is effective. You put something in the mikvah, it becomes tar. But you can't put it in the mikvah. Ein matzal al atar milit tamei. You can't put it in the mikvah as a preemptive that it shouldn't become tamei. Put it in the mikvah first. That way it's going to protect it. So later on it shouldn't become. That doesn't work. Okay. Now there is one version in the Ran that says that's the whole story. That's all the sages wanted to say, and that's our Gemara. And then from this we would see what the sages understood from Rebbe Eliezer was that it would never take effect. That's what we're trying to think. That we're bringing in more of the argumentation here to get an answer to our question of should it take effect at all, and then the husband's annulment takes it off, or does it not even start? Right. Well, yeah, actually, I don't know if that's how it works with immunity. I think it may be that just the body has enough antibodies to fight it. Right? That's not like it doesn't. It's like you're in a protective bubble.
We already addressed the idea that you can't revoke or annul something. So
that's
like an argument
right.
Against how can you revoke something that doesn't exist? Like a recurring theme.
Right. And there's this thing in the Gemara that you can't buy something that doesn't exist. You can't, makdish maybe something that doesn't exist. It has to have some. So
there were certain points we were talking.
We didn't. No one actually said that clearly. Like, how could you do that? They quoted a pasuk. The sages said that if you can't establish it before it exists, how can you annul it before it exists? That's what the sages' logic was. And we wouldn't actually say that the fact that it doesn't exist yet is itself a reason why not. Like we would say by making something hektish or giving exchanging ownership or something. So according to one version of the Ran, that's the whole story over here. If you see that Rabbi Eliezer's logic doesn't work. Rabbi Eliezer's logic is if you can get it, if you can take it off after it starts, then for sure you can preempt it. And you see by a mikveh that that's not so. You can only use a mikveh after it was tamei, but you can't put it in the mikveh beforehand to be a protective, that it should not become tamei. That's not the other versions of the Ran. The Ran has another version as well, and which is our Gemara. Our Gemara goes on. Adam shein maila setzuma mitmasam. So once we say that a mikveh only works after it was tamei, but it doesn't work before the item was tamei. You can't put it in to protect it. So a person that does not make anything pure. So for example, let's say there's a ring that became tamei, and then someone put the ring in their mouth, they swallowed it, and then they spit it back up or whatever. It doesn't become tahar now, just because it was inside a person. The ring is the ring. Remember that Gemara Bava Basra about the elephant that swallowed a basket, and it came out the other side, swallowed a wicker basket. Do we say that it's considered a utensil that's made out of excrement, which is not tamei, or do we say that it's considered its original thing? And they asked this person this question. They wanted to see if he's a Talmud Chacham. They asked him this question. I think it was Rabbi Barav. If he was a Talmud Chacham, they would let him sell his items first in the market. They were going to test him. So anyway, but whatever the case is, someone swallows a ring, a metal ring, and then which was tamei, doesn't purify it. According to Rabbi Eliezer, if it doesn't work after the fact, okay, then we have no reason that it should work before the fact. Works after the fact, and for sure it works before the fact. But if it doesn't work after the fact, then we don't know about before the fact. So the Gemara says, but is it not all the more so that if it doesn't work after the fact, so it also shouldn't be protective? I was asking, is it not all the more so that it shouldn't protect from becoming tamei? Well, we're doing it like this. We're comparing it not to the vow, we're doing it to the mikvah. The mikvah, for some reason, only works after the fact, but not beforehand. Which that would tell me that if it worked beforehand, then it should work after. And if it doesn't work after, then it shouldn't work before. Possibly.
What does after mean?
After it was tamei. The mikvah works after it's tamei. You put it in the mikvah, it becomes tar. But before it's tamei, you put it in the mikvah. It doesn't protect it from becoming tamei.
Right. The
So now
works only in the present.
Right.
The discussion here is whether something can work in the past or the future.
Right. So now, but the mikvah works not just in the present. The mikvah works that something that was tamei can be removed. The tumah could be removed from it by putting it in the mikvah. By a person swallowed. Here the comparison.
It's not retroactive.
Right, I understand. It's not retroactive. Now, if you put if a person swallows a ring, of course, it doesn't become tamei when it doesn't become tar when he spits. It's a tamei ring. It doesn't become tar when he spits it up. If he swallows a tar ring and then he enters a house that's tamei, I had this in the Rambam recently. The ring doesn't become tamei. It's called tuma balua. If he's alive, that is. If he's not alive, it becomes tamei for several reasons. But but it's not tumah below, tumah that's absorbed.
Hi, good morning. Can you tell me what page? Sorry.
Yeah, we're finishing Ayin Hey Amid Beis.
Okay, thank you.
We're at, almost the last word of it.
Thanks.
So what we're saying now is that even though when it comes to removing the tumah, it doesn't work, but by a person, it is protected. So you see both sides of this. On the one hand, a mikvah only works when it's after the fact. On the other hand, when it comes to a person, it only works before the fact. So you see that it has nothing to do with the kal v'chomer. It doesn't have to do with if it's strict or lenient or this. You see, it's totally not related. One thing. So that's the second way of the Ran's doing this. Okay. There's a third way as well.
Rabbi, question?
Lake Island, whatever the case is, one second. Whatever the case is, we see that Lake Island, that the child, yeah. Yeah.
I can ask a question.
Yeah,
what about what's called Maineda, by the red heifer, where we have that saying that at the same time it makes tamei tahor, tahor tamei. That seems to be a little contradictory to the statements or conclusions we were coming up to.
Right. 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 Over there, what's happening is that the tummy person becomes tar, just like a mikvah, tummy person becomes tar. And it also works that a tar person, there's two ways that's discussed. A tar person could become tummy from being in contact with the water. That's not that doesn't actually address like what we're discussing if it's preemptive. What would be a problem with our Gemara would be if you can sprinkle the paraduma water beforehand so that he shouldn't become tummy later. That's how it would become like a discussion. But over there, it's just it makes pure, which is good. Okay, mikvah makes pure, and also makes tamei. Okay, other things make tamei. So the question is why the same thing does both. That itself is a question. But what we're discussing is really if is the logic here, is it inherent that if you can remove something, then automatically you can preempt it, and if you can preempt it, does that mean that it's also that you can remove it or not? Okay.
Thank you.
So what we see now is based on this argumentation with the Chachamim that they're responding to Rebbe Lezer, that how can you say that there's a kal v'chomer, that if you can remove it after it takes effect, then for sure you can preempt it. So what about by the mikveh? What about by the person? You see that it's not related. Now, what we're getting out of that is our question: when it's preempted, according to Rebbe Lezer, is it that it never takes effect? Which that was basically our question. And by the mikveh, we're trying to say that since it went into the mikveh, so then it shouldn't take effect. Or since when the person has it inside him and he walks into a house, it doesn't take effect. Now, according to Rabbi Eliezer, what would come out would be that it would actually become tamei. According to Rabbi Eliezer logic, if a person can't protect, can't purify it after the fact, doesn't work 100% because Rabbi Eliezer never said that. What would come out is the opposite. What would come out is that if a person can make it tahar, no, it doesn't tell me anything making it tahar. Let me just see how the Ram did this. guess what he wanted to say is that if it doesn't purify, if a person swallowing a ring can't purify, somehow that should say that if he swallows the ring before he makes it tamei, it should not be protected. If it doesn't purify, it should also not protect. That's what we would think, according to Rebbe Lezer. I mean, but the Rebbe Lezer never said that. Okay. The Gemara says, but even this logic that we are getting out of it, the first way is much easier. The first way is just simple mikvah contradicts Rebbe Lezer's logic. According to Rebbe Lezer, mikvah should be protective. Ema Seifa, we're on the top of Bayin Vav. Let's see the end of this. Amalei Rebbe Lezer, imat bilan keli litame litar, yet bilu keli likashiyitma litar. They told Rebbe Lezer that if you can immerse a vessel that's tamei, to purify it, then you should be able to immerse a vessel that when it will become tamei, it should also become tar. Okay, now it's very similar to the logic before. The only thing is there's a little bit different in the wording here. That over here the wording is that after it becomes tamei, the mikveh that was done previously should purify it. Now here what we're going to see is Shema Minach Island. We see that the discussion here between Rebbe Lezer and the Chachamim, at least the way the Chachamim are asking Rebbe Lezer, is that they're expecting the Tumah to take effect, but because it went into the mikveh previously, that mikveh should purify it after it takes effect. So now we have contradictory implications. From the first argument, we thought that maybe the vow doesn't take effect at all. And now the way we're doing this comparison to the mikveh is that the vow does take effect, but just that the husband's annulment annuls it after it takes effect. Amri, so the people in the yeshiva said, Amri Rabbanan, Lekaimelan b'tami de Rebbe Lezer. Amri, they said that the Rabbanan Lekaimelan b'tami de Rebbe Lezer, that the sages were not 100% sure which way Rebbe Lezer held. So they argued with him every possible argument. They argued with him if it.
Where are we gathering the idea that someone can annul the future neder?
Well, that's Rabbi Eliezer's view.
Oh.
Rabbi Eliezer holds that a person can annul the future neder. The Gemara has a question. Does he annul it? Does the husband annul it after it takes effect, even though it's in the future? It takes effect and then the annulment kicks in? Or do we say that it never takes effect? So we had two, in the arguments with the sages against Rebbe Lezer, we had two implications. So what do we say? So the Gemara says, well, the sages didn't know the answer to that question, what Rebbe Lezer really held. So they argued with him both ways, whether it takes effect or whether it doesn't take effect. Okay. This is what they said. My sviralach, what do you hold? Isviralach. If you hold that it takes effect, but then it becomes nullified, then the vessel that goes into the mikvah, over there where the question would be that the keli that goes into the mikvah after it's tamei, the mikvah works. But before it's tamei, we don't say that after it becomes tamei, if it goes into the mikvah before it becomes tamei, we don't say that after it becomes tamei, that the mikvah should work on it after the fact. We don't say that. Okay, then that would mean that it actually does become tamei. If you hold that it doesn't take effect, then let's talk about the mikvah itself. The mikvah itself, at least according to one of the versions of here, would be that the mikvah only works after something is tamei, but it doesn't work as a protective. Before it becomes tamei, it doesn't protect. Okay, so you have both. So we don't have an answer yet. Tashema. Come and listen. Amalam Rabbi Eliezer. Now, this is Rabbi Eliezer talking to the sages. He was still trying to prove his logic that if a husband can annul the vow after the vow was taken, his wife's vow after the vow was taken, he should also be able to annul the vow before it's taken. He says, let's say there's seeds that are tamei, impure. Even shazarim bekarka. But when they get planted in the ground and they sprout new, So tahirim becomes pure. So zruim va'imdim, something that's already planted, like golshkein, is it not all the more so that it should be pure? Which is true. It is pure because something that's attached to the ground doesn't become tummy. Shmamina, but whatever the case is, like chaylen, over there, it actually does not become tummy at all. It is protective. So what would that, when because comparing this back to the vow, what Rabbi Les is trying to say is that if you can remove the vow, which is sort of like the seeds tummy going into the ground to become purified, so for sure you can stop it from ever becoming a vow, which is like the seeds that were already planted that don't become tummy. Okay, now the Gemara says, "V'Rabbanan leidarshi kal v'chaimer." The rabbis don't have this kal v'chaimer. The rabbis also hold that this is a logic that they would accept. But Tanya, take a look at this. You could have thought that maybe a person can sell his daughter as a maidservant after she's 12 years old. Now, the rule is that a person can sell his daughter under 12 as a maidservant. Let's say the Gemara says maybe you could sell after 12 as well. The Gemara says, Amr kal v'chaimer. Mechura kvar yaitza. Eina mechura and din shleiti macher. If she would have been sold before she was 12, when does she leave that slavery? When she becomes a nara, when she becomes 12, right? She goes out when she's 12. Now, so if she was sold before 12, she goes out when she becomes 12. So for sure, if she's 12 already, she can't be sold. That's exactly Rabbi Eliezer's logic. That if you can remove it after it happened, like the 12 years old removes the slavery, so for sure the 12 years old will stop it from becoming a slave before it, even before it, exactly like the vow. If the husband can remove the vow after it happened, so for sure he can remove. See, the rabbis also have that logic. Gemara says yeah, that's true.
But what's removing the slavery is just age. It's not someone saying,
Right.
You know, in
Right.
one case with the neder, it's someone actually taking an action, making neder. The other is just
Right.
nature.
Right.
Nature runs its course.
Right. So we're not actually discussing the action here. We're discussing the thought process of something that's effective, that can change the status, for sure can affect that the status should not be changed. So same thing with the vow. If we can change the status of the vow, for sure it can be effective that the vow should not take effect. Gemara says, Ian, Ba'alma darshi kal v'chaimer. This, you're right. The logic is good. But Rishani Hacha Damakra, over here it's a little different because we have a pasuk. The pasuk says, Ishi Kimena V'Yishifrano. That a husband establishes the vow, a husband annuls the vow. Esha balachlal hakem, balachlal hefer. If he's able to establish it, then he's able to annul it. Esha lebachlal hakem, lebachlal hefer. It's all based on a pasuk. Even though Rebbe Lezer has the logic, the sages have a pasuk that they quote.
What would be the case if I said on myself, all the time I make it?
Should be annulled,
Right.
which is actually what we do, which actually works.
We do that.
We do that by a tarstam, and over there, when you actually take the vow never even starts, because that's considered nidrei tois. The Ran said yesterday. Tarstam is the annulment of the vows, but the last paragraph of the Tarstam Nedarim is that any vows that I take this year shall not be effective.
Oh, it's not the previous year?
That's how it starts. It starts off with the previous year and the annulment. No, excluding the vows that I take at mincha, but that should be a tainus. Those are the only ones that could take effect if I vow to have a fast.
So a person can say all the dharma I make are valid and valid have sex, right?
Yeah.
So then in theory, the same applies.
Right.
The question in this Gemara shouldn't be all these wonderful ideas comparing to a mikvah just because you have control over the wife or not.
Okay.
If you have
So-
control, then yeah, he does have control,
So Yeah. Yeah. So Rabbi Eliezer's view was that, of course, he has control. He even has control after she did something. He can remove it. So for sure, that's Rabbi Eliezer's view. He can remove it beforehand. He can preempt it. The sages said that no, that since he's not able to establish it before it was done, and since there's a pasuk that compares establishing to annulling, so you can only remove it once it's done.
Right, so then really the question should be on the comment. If you believe that you have control over your life, you can annul her vows, shouldn't you have the same level of control?
Right. So for that they said that the logic is there, but the pasuk tells me no. The logic is there. The pasuk that says ishi kimeno ishi yifrenu, that because I compare it to the establishing, so therefore I can't do the annulment. That's how what it finished with this. The only problem is that when you're done with an argument, and then you end up saying that I'm left with the pasuk that proves my point. So now I have to go back and examine those. So why were you quoting the arguments before? If you hold that Rebbe Lezer is correct, you see, they said that all of Rebbe Lezer. What we're saying now is that Rebbe Lezer is 100% correct. That's a real logic. That if you can remove it afterwards, for sure you can preempt it. The only reason why we're not accepting it is because of a pasuk. So then, why were you talking about the mikvah? So how do you go back and explain everything that you were arguing? Yeah. Right. Right. So the Ran over here asked that question, and the Ran says that there's a pasuk for each one of those. Goes through that each one of those arguments also has a pasuk. Okay, that way it answers the. Yeah, someone told me I had a contractor that was messed up this and he says complaining thing. So the guy says no, it's always like that. He says yeah, but my other faucet isn't like that. He says oh, that's because of this, and he says but so why didn't you get me the same one the thing? He says oh, that's because it came from Italy, and at the end of the thing he says oh, you're right. So he says so you couldn't get it from Italy. He went back to all those other claims, because we go through a slew of excuses. So all of those are yes correct or they're not correct. Okay. We have a new Mishnah here. How far is Nedarim Kolayim? The annulment of the vows could be done all day. Now, but in this, there's a stringency and also a leniency. Kate said, what do you mean, stringency and leniency? Nadra B'Leili Shabbos. If the vow was taken Friday night. Yeah. This. Yeah. So, Yofer B'Leili Shabbos, B'Yom Shabbos Ad Shetechsha. The husband can annul his wife's vows all Friday night, all Shabbos day, until Shalosh Shudas, until before it becomes dark. So that's almost 24 hours, 23 hours. Nadra Im Chashecha. Let's say she took the vow on Shabbos, right before it gets dark, Shalosh Shudas time. So Mefer Ad Shlei Techshach, the annulment can only be done until it gets dark. Because if it does get dark, Mitzvah Shabbos dark, any Yachal can't annul the vow, right? We're talking about Friday afternoon, Shabbos afternoon. Okay. You're gonna see about annulling vows on Shabbos, which comes out a very interesting thing. It seems like the vows could be annulled on Shabbos, at least by the husband. We didn't say about the Chacham. It looks like it's coming up tomorrow. Okay, Tanya, started in the Brisa. Afaras Nedarim Kolayim, the annulment of vows is all day. That's according to another version over here. It says Divrei Rebbe. That's the words of Rebbe. But the Gemara goes on. It says Rabbi Yosi bar Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon Amru. These two sages said Rabbi Yosi bar Rabbi Yehuda That's Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lai's son, right? One of the students of Rabbi Akiva's children. And Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon, that's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's son. These are friends of Rabbi. Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon and Rabbi were chavrusas. Rabbi Rabbi Yehuda would have been the same age. Amru, they said, you don't have until sundown. You have 24 hours. Me'esleis means from time to time, which means on the clock. Same time tomorrow.
Any day, it could be like a weekday at
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. My time of the Tanakama. What's the reason for the Tanakama that says that you have only until nightfall? Amra Kra b'yoyim shamai, on the day that it was heard. Once it becomes night, it's a different day. But Rabbanan my time. V'Rabbanan my time. What's the reason for the Rabbanan? Which Rabbanan over here means Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon. Those two sages. What's their reason? Because it says until nightfall, but there's another verse that says from day to day, which means 24 hours. So there's two implications in the verse.
Same thing true with someone's tamei that they tell her about the Torah until the evening.
Yeah. By a mikvah, someone goes to the mikvah. So when evening comes, they become pure. They're
So
still
you
like
don't need that 24 hours.
No. But over here it seems miyayim al yayim, from day to day, that you have 24 hours. So there seems to be contradictory implications from the pasuk. Well, the Tanakama ksiv miyayim al yayim. What does the Tanakama do? It says from day to day. And they said it only goes until nightfall. It's trich. Gemara says they need that pasuk as well. Because if it was on the day that it was heard, could have thought that maybe b'yayim shamay means only by day. So miyayim al yayim says from day to day to tell me that if the vow was taken at the night of Shabbos, that they have all night and all day to annul it. Miyayim al yayim, from day to day. So there is a case where you will have from day to day, which is when the vow was taken at night. You have more than just until nightfall. Well, it is really until nightfall, but it's longer.
Whole day, following night, and then day again.
No. You only
You just
have that night and day,
it's day.
not until it's day. That night, the day, until nightfall. Nightfall ends it always.
Okay.
The question is, if it was before nightfall, then nightfall ends it. You only have a half
what's
hour.
Your definition of day? Because day goes to be like daylight.
Right. So that's what the Tanakhama is saying. That the definition of day we learned from Miyayim al Yayim that it doesn't mean just daylight, and also, but it doesn't mean 24 hours. Really, it just means until nightfall. But including the night until nightfall. It could start at night.
Previous.
Or day. Where did we have that? Yeah. Uh-huh.
Otherwise, I would say both characters.
Come on.
There's a discussion about Yom. There's two translations of Yom. This my Marim Alter Rebbe discussing.
I'm learning that.
Yeah. Okay. So what does the other opinion do? That if it says 24 hours, what does he do with on the day that he heard? It sounds like only until nightfall. He needs that as well. Because if it says from day to day, have a meaning could have thought it means from Sunday to Sunday, leifala. Could have thought that maybe from day to day doesn't mean 24 hours. It means the same day of the week, next week. I don't know why the Gemara thought that. Maybe it means the day of the month next month. Maybe it means the day of the year next year. Why the day? Well, like why specifically? It means one day. Maybe the Gemara means that it could have meant other things as well. Yom Shami tells me that it means one day. Reb Shimon ben Pazi, Reb Shua ben Levi, in halacha kaisazug. Reb Shimon ben Pazi says the name of Reb Shua ben Levi. The halacha is not like that pair. That pair said that you have 24 hours. We're saying the halacha is only until nightfall. Levi savar lemevad kani tanoi. Levi wanted to follow them. Amalei Rav. So Rav tells to Levi. Rav and Levi are friends. They're students of Rebbe. Achi Amar Chavivi. My uncle said, Chavivi means Reb Chia, which is his uncle. Like in Hebrew you say Daidi, which also means like my beloved. And Chavivi means my beloved. So that basically translated as uncle. My uncle says, "Ein halacha kaisuzug." You don't paskin like them. You only go until nightfall, not 24 hours. Chia barav shadi giru bade. There's two interpretations here based on different versions of this Gemara, but the Gemara now says that Chia barav would not stop what he's doing to annul a vow. It was middle of shooting arrows, and he would annul the vow while he's in the middle of aiming. That's one version. Other version is the Rush brings this.
Changing the time.
Right. Other version is that halacha kaisizug, not ein halacha kaisizug. Halacha, and we're going to paskin like them that you actually have 24 hours. How would he know exactly when it was? Well, when the vow was heard, he shoots an arrow into for the sundial to know where the shadow is. And then the next day at that time, he knew when to annul it. And Rabbi Baravuna, Yosef Khan. Rabbi Baravuna, he would stop what he's doing to annul the vow. He would sit up and stop. The other version says that he would examine the wall to see exactly where the time was. Yeah. Okay, let's leave it here.
By the way, Randy, you're right.
Talking about his wife's
Maybe last
Nedarim,
week,
or
2 weeks ago.
maybe we're not talking
I
about.
don't remember the
We're not talking about his
specific
wife.
context, but we did
We're
have a
talking about
discussion
a
about it.
chacham. He's the chacham, and someone's coming to annul the Nedarim. So then it has nothing to do with the wall. It has to do with that he could be matin neder without doing. Then it would just mean that while he's shooting, he could be matin neder, because the Ran explains that he held that you don't need to look for a real Pesach to annul the vow.
This time frame, you have all day and all night.
Yeah.
Are we discussing him breaking his wife's vows? Are we back to that? Or are we
No.
discussing?
Breaking his wife's vows.
Right, 'cause it wouldn't make sense to relate to his vows. His vows, you know, anytime you want to
Right,
talk on the
right. Go a year later. Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Enough telling me members.